It's strange how a single photo can break the illusion you've spent years building. That night, I was sitting alone in my one-bedroom apartment in Albany, half watching the reflection of city lights crawl across my ceiling, when my sister's post popped up on my feed. Family only. We finally have everyone together. The caption burned before the image even loaded. And when it did, there they were. My parents, my cousins, even people I hadn't seen since childhood. All smiling under the golden lights of a downtown restaurant. Everyone except me. I didn't need to check twice. It was their 30th wedding anniversary dinner. The one I wasn't invited to because of limited seating. My mother's words, delivered a week earlier with that soft, careful tone that always came before something cruel. I had told myself it didn't matter, that I was too busy anyway. But as I stared at that photo, champagne glasses raised high, the lie fell apart. Quick reminder, most of you aren't subscribed. If you enjoy this, hit subscribe and like now, then let's get back to the story. I'm Jolene Carter, 32, an architect who's been quietly paying off her parents' mortgage for the past 3 years. It wasn't out of duty, not exactly. It was a trade I made with myself. Maybe if I helped enough, sacrificed enough, they'd finally see me. But that night, looking at that picture, I realized they already did. They just didn't like what they saw. Without thinking, I typed my comment. Congrats, mortgage and taxes are all yours now. Then I hit send. The screen froze for half a second, and so did my breath. 5 minutes later, the post vanished. 10 more, and my phone lit up with 30 missed calls. Mostly Mom, a few from AThe, one from Dad. I didn't answer. I just sat there in the half-dark, the glow of the screen washing over my hands. Maybe they hadn't forgotten me at all. Maybe they'd simply erased me. It had always been this way. AThe was the sun, and I was the shadow trailing quietly behind. Growing up, Mom framed AThe's messy stick figure drawings like they were masterpieces. My blue ribbon from the state science fair? Folded into a drawer before dinner. Don't brag, she'd said, as if pride were a crime. AThe's smallest effort was a miracle. My best work was just expected. As we got older, the pattern didn't fade. It evolved. When the family car broke down, I wired the money to fix it. When Dad's hospital bills piled up, I sent another check. Each call began with, "How are you, honey?" and ended with, "Could you just help us one more time?" They never said thank you. I told myself that was fine, that good daughters didn't keep score. But deep down, I was keeping one. AThe's life unraveled early. Married at 23, divorced by 25, back in her old bedroom with boxes of clothes and a bruised ego. Mom treated her like a soldier returning from war. Poor thing, she told neighbors. She's been through so much. The weekend I visited, I offered to take AThe out to dinner. She said she was too tired. Later that night, I overheard Mom whispering to Dad, "Jolene doesn't understand real struggle." I remember laughing quietly in the dark. Paying their bills apparently didn't count as struggle. Living on my own did. To them, independence was coldness and silence was selfishness. Dad, Robert, was never cruel, just absent in the moments that mattered most. "You know how your mother is," he'd mutter whenever she cut me down, as if resignation was a virtue. His silence was his loyalty, but not to me. Years passed in that rhythm of distance. I became the reliable one, the invisible one. Their love came with invoices, emotional or otherwise. It wasn't unconditional. It was transactional. Then came that call, 1 week before the party. Mom's voice sugar-coated with guilt. "You know there are only so many seats at the restaurant, honey. I hope you understand." I said I did. I even smiled when I hung up. But an hour later, AThe texted me, "Don't take it personally." That little emoji sealed it. I wasn't forgotten. I was deliberately left out. That evening, my coworker, Na, invited me for coffee. She's one of those people who never pry but always notice. I told her everything. The phone call, the text, the fake sweetness. She listened quietly, then said, "They only love the version of you that pays the bills." Her words landed like a pin drop in a cathedral. I almost laughed, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. That night, I tried to bridge the gap one last time. I ordered a small silver photo frame online engraved with 30 years of love. It wasn't expensive, just thoughtful. I wrapped it with care, wrote a short card, "Congratulations. Wishing you both many more happy years." Then I mailed it. 3 days later, it came back. Same box, same handwriting. Inside, the frame was untouched. A note rested on top. "We already have too much." I stood in the hallway staring at it, not sure whether to laugh or cry. The message was polite. The meaning wasn't. That night, as snow began to fall outside my window, I thought of Na's words again. They only love the version of you that pays the bills. I unplugged my phone, sat in the quiet, and realized for the first time that maybe love built on obligation wasn't love at all. But peace didn't last. Because a week later, that photo appeared. The one under golden lights. And before I could think, before reason could interrupt, my fingers typed the truth they'd ignored for years. Congrats. Mortgage and taxes are all yours now. I didn't delete it. I didn't explain. I just watched the silence that followed. And in that silence, something shifted. Maybe anger. Maybe freedom. I didn't know which yet, only that it had finally begun. The night after I posted that comment, the silence was deafening. I didn't cry. I didn't answer the calls. I just sat there on my couch, watching the snow blur the city outside, the phone face down beside me, its vibrations crawling across the table every few minutes like tiny reminders of everything I'd lost, or maybe everything I'd finally let go of. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. 2 weeks passed. I stopped sending the mortgage payments without ceremony. No text, no explanation. Just stopped. Every month for 3 years, I'd been the invisible auto payment that kept their house alive. The moment I pulled the plug, the silence on their end got heavier. By the second week, the calls came again. The bank keeps calling, Mom's text read. They said something about a missed payment. Is everything all right? Her messages always came wrapped in concern but lined with control. We didn't want to bother you, she followed up a day later, but they say it's urgent. That word, urgent, was her favorite guilt trigger. I could practically hear the sigh through the screen. Then came Ava's post. She didn't message me directly. She never did when she wanted to twist the knife. Instead, she went public. A photo of her holding Mom's hand captioned, "Some people forget who raised them." The comments poured in, "Stay strong. Family can hurt the most." She replied to every single one with heart emojis and crying faces, soaking up sympathy like it was oxygen. She was good at playing the victim. It was her superpower. I scrolled once. Then I closed the app and let my phone fall onto the couch. I wasn't giving them another ounce of my energy, but ignoring them didn't stop reality from catching up. 3 days later, an envelope arrived from the bank. Thick, official, heavy. I almost tossed it aside, thinking it was another statement. But when I opened it, my name stared back at me in bold print. Jolene Carter, borrower and guarantor. At first, I didn't understand. The numbers didn't make sense. The house had been refinanced for an amount far larger than before. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't even been told. My stomach dropped. I called the bank that same afternoon. After 30 minutes of hold music and polite transfers, a calm male voice came on the line. Ethan Davis, account manager. "How can I assist you, Miss Carter?" I told him I needed details on a refinance loan under my name, one I never signed. He hesitated, then said, "According to our records, the refinance was processed in July. Primary borrowers listed Robert and Evelyn Carter. Your authorization appears as guarantor. The digital signature matches prior authorizations on file." "I never signed that," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "There's an electronic signature," he replied carefully. "It appears consistent with previous transactions." Consistent. The word sliced through me. Someone had reused my digital authorization, the one I'd set up years ago to send the monthly payments. They'd used my trust as their key. I asked for timestamps, IP logs, anything. Ethan's tone shifted into the kind used by people walking through legal minefields. "I can provide that through a formal request," he said. "If you're suggesting fraud, we can initiate an internal review." Fraud. The word felt both impossible and inevitable. I thanked him, hung up, and sat staring at the papers spread across my desk. My parents hadn't just leaned on me. They'd stolen from me. Every quiet act of help, every sacrifice, had turned into ammunition they used against me. Mom's messages kept coming. "We need to talk. You're being unreasonable. You're tearing this family apart." Each text was a mirror reflecting the same truth. Their love was conditional. Their silence was power. And I'd finally broken the contract. That night, I found it, an old email from the bank buried in my inbox, 2 months old, labeled refinance confirmation. I'd ignored it at the time, assuming it was spam. But the attached PDF told a different story. There it was, my name, my digital signature, the verification code tied to the joint account I'd once shared with Dad for the payments. The access I'd left open because I trusted them. The access they'd used. The refinance had 2 authorizations, both completed within 10 minutes of each other. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. I printed everything, highlighted every timestamp and name until my hands shook from exhaustion. By the time I finished, I was sitting in a small mountain of paper, each sheet a receipt of betrayal. When I finally looked up, the city outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your heartbeat. For years, I'd been the safety net beneath their lives. Now I was their collateral. I opened my laptop, typed a new email. Subject, formal dispute of fraudulent authorization to Ethan Davis. Every word was calm, precise, deliberate. I attached the evidence and asked for a freeze on the account. When I hit send, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just sat there in the glow of my laptop, breathing in the kind of silence that no longer felt suffocating. It felt clean. By late October, the truth had interest. I met with a real estate attorney, Clark Benson, in his small office lined with case files and coffee-stained folders. He read through everything without interruption. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Miss Carter, this is textbook forgery. Whoever accessed your credentials committed fraud." Hearing it aloud didn't hurt. It clarified. It turned pain into evidence. Clark outlined the next steps. Report the incident, freeze the account, initiate a civil complaint. I nodded, not because I was ready for war, but because I was done pretending peace. 3 days later, I got an email from Ethan. Attached were transaction logs, system records, and the confirmation that the refinance had originated from my parents' IP address. His final line read, "I'm sorry this happened to you, sorry didn't fix it." But it helped me see the truth clearly. I hadn't lost my family that night at the restaurant. I'd lost them long before, the moment love became a ledger. A week later, AThe texted, "Mom wants to meet. Just us, Sunday brunch." I didn't answer right away. But something in me, not anger, not curiosity, just closure, made me reply, "Where and when?" That Sunday, I arrived 15 minutes early. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso, and I remember thinking how peaceful it felt before the storm. I sat by the window, folder beside me, waiting. When they walked in, Mom in her pressed coat, Dad trailing silently behind, AThe smiling too brightly, I already knew this wasn't a reunion. It was a performance. AThe started first. "We're glad you came," she said, voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "Things got messy. Let's clear the air," Mom nodded. "We all made mistakes, but we're family. We can fix this." I looked at her, then at the folder. "Fix this?" I said softly. "You used my name for your loan." The table went still. AThe blinked. Mom froze. Dad didn't move. "That's not true," AThe stammered. "Maybe the bank—" I slid the paper across the table, my name. My signature. Time-stamped. Verified. "The bank didn't do this," I said. "You did." Silence. Then Mom whispered, "We only did it to keep the family together." I gathered the papers slowly, stood and said, "Then keep it together without me." The cafe was suddenly too quiet, every clink of a spoon loud enough to echo. I left cash for my coffee, picked up the folder, and walked out into the crisp October air. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away from family. I was walking toward myself. 3 months after that brunch, the house went quiet. The same house I'd kept standing with every silent payment. The same house that had drained my savings and my spirit, now stood empty, its porch lights dark, its curtains drawn. A foreclosure notice hung across the front window like a scarlet confession. I didn't plan to drive by. I just happened to be near the old neighborhood, dropping off paperwork for the court. But when I turned the corner and saw that red bank-owned sticker across the for sale sign, my breath caught somewhere between relief and disbelief. The garden Mom used to brag about was gone. Brown stems breaking through frost, flower beds full of dead leaves. Dad's old wind chime still hung near the porch, clinking softly in the winter wind like a ghost trying to apologize. For a long time, I just sat there in my car watching the house that once defined me shrink into silence. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like proof that lies always outlive their comfort. The foreclosure moved fast. Without my payments, and with the fraud case under review, the mortgage defaulted within weeks. By Christmas, the property belonged to the bank. The furniture went into storage, the front door padlocked. The neighbors whispered. Families like ours weren't supposed to end this way. Not the Carters, not the perfect ones from the anniversary photos. AThe disappeared first. Word was she was staying with a friend across town, sleeping on a pull-out couch in a one-bedroom apartment. The same woman who'd once posted family only under golden lights had deleted every trace of her life online. Her Instagram was gone. Her carefully filtered world wiped clean. When the bank's lawyers reached out for a deposition, she ignored every message. But silence has its own consequences. A month later, the district attorney's office filed a civil complaint for falsifying financial documents during the refinance. My attorney Clark forwarded me the notice with no commentary. He didn't need to say anything. I just sat there reading her name in black ink and felt nothing, not victory, not pity. Just the dull ache of recognition. Mom called once after that. Her voice, brittle and breaking, trembled through the line. "You didn't have to destroy us," she whispered. "You could have helped." For a second, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because irony can be cruelly poetic. You could have asked, I wanted to say. You could have loved me without needing something in return. But I didn't speak at all. I just listened to her breathe and then hung up. She never mentioned the forgery. Never admitted it. In her mind, I was still the ungrateful daughter who refused to obey. Dad never called. His silence was nothing new. It was his native language. Whether it came from guilt or cowardice, I'd stopped caring. Silence had been his shield all his life. Let him keep it. By February, I'd packed up my place in Albany and moved to a small apartment in Rochester. It wasn't much, white walls, creaky floors, secondhand furniture, but it was mine. Every bill, every light bulb, every breath belonged solely to me. The first morning there, I brewed coffee in a chipped mug, stood by the window, and watched children walking to school through falling snow. Their laughter carried through the cold, faint but alive. For the first time in years, I felt something I couldn't quite name. Not happiness, not yet. Something simpler, weightlessness. Each week, I built small rituals of peace. Grocery runs on Saturdays. Long walks after work. No more midnight phone calls begging for help. No more inboxes full of guilt. Just stillness. When the court ruling finally arrived in late spring, it was 1 page long, short and surgical. The judge had ruled in my favor. My name was officially removed from the fraudulent loan. Liability reassigned to the original borrowers. Intentional misrepresentation, the document said in neat black print. Reading it, I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure, the kind that doesn't roar, just exhales. Ethan Davis from the bank emailed me later that day. "The case is closed. I wish you the best moving forward." I replied with 2 words. "Thank you." That night, I sat by my window with the lights off, watching the snow return, softer now, falling like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. Sometimes, I still think of AThe, not with anger anymore, just curiosity. I wonder if she ever saw the truth beneath all her pretending. I wonder if she knows that love can't survive on image alone. Other nights, I think of Mom's garden, how she used to say, "You can't grow anything in the cold." She was wrong. Some things grow best in the cold. Clarity, boundaries, self-respect. A few weeks later, while organizing a drawer, I found an old photograph, a family portrait from years ago. All of us smiling in front of that same house, before the lies, before the loans, before the silence. I looked at it for a long time, my thumb tracing the edges of my younger self, the girl who thought being needed was the same as being loved. I slid the photo back into the envelope and tucked it away. The past didn't need to be framed anymore. It could stay buried where it belonged. Life in Rochester wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. I paid my rent, cooked dinner for one, read in quiet. I learned to fall asleep without expecting an apology that would never come. Peace, I realized, wasn't something people gave you. It was something you built. One quiet decision at a time. On the first night of spring, I stood by the window as the snow melted into rain. The streetlights shimmered in puddles, turning the world gold and new again. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills you with everything you once thought you'd lost, and whispered to the empty room, "This is mine." And for the first time, it truly was, because peace, I finally understood, was the most expensive thing I ever bought.